started driving, I think, at like 11:30 and stopped driving around 6:30 in the morning or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had a day off today and decided to cruise all the way through the night to get to Vegas to like hang out for the night.
So when you guys get to Vegas, are you the kind of band that actually enjoys Vegas, or do you guys just go to like your motel rooms and lock yourself up and do absolutely nothing?
No, there's like dudes like our bass player Steve had like comped room for Hard Rock.
Okay.
So we're like at the Hard Rock, and then some other dudes are at the Luxor, and yeah, we enjoy it.
Nice. Do you do any fun MMA related things since you're out there and the MMA capital of the country?
No, I mean we literally just got here, so haven't. Last time I was here, actually, I saw. Oh my God! Last time we were here, this summer, I saw Dennis Hallman like gambling on this like. I don't know. He had like that. It was like I think he had like a World Series of Fighting, or he had a fight that weekend. Yeah. And I saw him, and he was playing like a My Little Pony like machine or something like that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember when we played with Mastodon and Death Clock in Vegas at a House of Blues, and immediately after sound check, I think it was like right after sound check, I took a cab over to the Hard Rock to catch the WEC undercard of the Mike Brown Aldo fight card, and then we played. And then I jumped back in a cab immediately after we played with our pal Monster, who travels with us, and just in time to catch Mike Brown and Jose fight for the title.
Yeah, that was a killer. Yeah, when that was a killer fight though.
It was a killer fight, and I'm trying to remember. Somebody was in my seat. When we got there, Gray Maynard and Jay Haran were in our seats. But,
oh boy.
Yeah, so I had to politely ask them to move. I kind of wanted to fanboy out though, so it was a little awkward of a moment.
When we went to Brazil, and Gray Maynard was like in the same. He was in like the same like plane ride, like the same. Like he was in United. He was like in the line. He wasn't on the same flight, but he was in the same line, and like he was helping Aldo for. I can't remember what fight, but yeah, he was. Oh, it was for the first Chad Mendes fight. He was down in Brazil helping Jose Aldo.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it was like 5 in the morning or something like that. And he was just, he wasn't having it.
So so our last conversation ended in a very strange way that I didn't broadcast yet, but we're talking about it yesterday, the day before, whatever.
Yeah.
So as we were talking, I get this text message from my wife that says, "Call me." My wife at the time was like 9 months pregnant, and she was working with me pretty much all day at Deathwish, helping me with some stuff. And she went to the grocery store, and I was going to meet her at home after I spoke with you. And she then immediately wrote "call me" in caps again. So it was obviously some sort of emergency. So I called her or whatever, or took the call, and she told me that her water broke at the grocery store while I was talking to you on the phone.
That was one of the most insane moments.
It really was, man. That was surreal.
That's life.
Yeah.
Life happened.
Life happened to me while we were talking. And yeah, man. So a couple hours later, I had a kid.
Yeah.
So
and now you're a dad.
Now I'm a dad. I haven't been sleeping very much for the last few weeks. 3 weeks or so. But it's super fun. Kids are fun. They're wild little monsters.
Yeah, and you're not going to sleep for the next 3 months, 4 months.
It's funny when our bass player had a kid a couple years ago. We were talking about that, and we're talking about how touring for many years has kind of made us a little a little less affected by that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where I think that a lot of people would have a harder time than we do, for sure. But we have to run on empty a lot as dudes in bands, and then be expected to just kind of like, turn it on and play and perform and do whatever we have to do. So that
Yeah.
definitely that conditioning I'm very thankful for, actually. It makes it a lot easier to wake up after an hour of sleep to, like chill out with a screaming little man for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like last night. We had that like long drive. Just like no problem. Like it just, you get in there and like that's just, yeah, like you said, like I think that as musicians, well, musicians are the way we tour.
Right.
Gets you a little more conditioned for taking a beat
Yeah,
like
for
that.
sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? You're just a couple days in so far on this tour.
Good. It's just, we played like we're playing a couple shows out to the tour. Like we're doing a tour with this band called The Ghost Inside.
Okay.
And yeah, we had like a show in Indianapolis, Springfield, Missouri, and Lubbock, Texas last night.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just now we're in Vegas. We play Vegas tomorrow. And,
Yep.
Yeah, Vegas. I don't know. Apparently, it's just not. It's not what it used to be, or if it ever was.
Yeah, I hear that a lot about Vegas. Like we had a few really fun shows in Vegas, probably in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit before then. And then people have sort of said the same thing to me, since then. I think our last time we played Vegas proper was that House of Blues shows I was talking about, and that's more of a concert than it is a show.
Yeah.
It's a
Yep.
different vibe.
We there was one time we played. It was actually pretty good, and Charles Barkley showed up at the show.
Oh, cool. So a normal show.
Yeah, normal Las Vegas show, and Sir Charles was on stage. I was like packing up my cords, and I just saw, Sir Charles standing there. Like, oh hey, Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
And then he like hung out with us for a while.
That's not surreal or anything.
No, it was great. It was great. It was just it was unreal. Yeah, Vegas is a weird place.
Yeah, it really is. It's strange. It's sort of like this big adult Disneyland mixed with uh, some real America, some real sort of impoverished, kind of heavy off the strip stuff. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wild place for sure.
Yeah, and it's like one of the only places in the United States where you can literally do anything.
Yeah,
Like if you have enough money, you can do anything you want, and most likely get away with it.
there's a lot of holes in that desert.
Yeah, yeah. I remember this one. I was dating this girl, and we had like a 1 year anniversary. And decided to come to Vegas for 1 week. She got like comped a room for a week.
Okay.
And we came to Vegas for 1 week, and it was like after the third day. I mean, even on that third day, I was like, I want to kill myself. Like this is awful. Like this place sucks so bad. The first day, I was like so excited. I was like, oh, it's Vegas. Like I wanted to do all the stuff that I normally don't get to do when you're on tour, and then the novelty just wore off immediately, and then we were still there for 4 more days or whatever.
Trapped.
It was awful.
Completely trapped.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So
what's up?
Last time we talked,
Yep.
before your now new son rudely interrupted us,
Yes.
we were talking about UFC stuff, and we were talking about Jose Aldo. We were talking about the light. We were talking about his bantamweight.
Right.
And then that fight happened, and Chad didn't look too bad.
Chad did not look bad at all. Chad looked great. I mean, Chad is he's a true athlete. I mean, he's put in his work. I think that most of the top 3 to 5 of the bantamweights he's going to be right there, or he's going to be the guy who's going to gut check them all. But
Yeah.
I don't foresee too many people, uh, too many other people really being that competitive against him.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of like the Junior Dos Santos of that. Like Junior Dos Santos is the number 2 guy,
Sure. Well, he
and
might be
it's
the
just,
number one after this weekend. We'll see.
yeah. But you know what I mean. Like it's he's that guy that's like, okay, you've already lost twice. Like you've gotten the shit beat out of you twice. Not saying that Chad didn't get the shit beat out of him, but like he lost it. He lost. Jose Aldo
He lost a fight.
beat
He
him
lost 2 fights.
convincingly. Yeah. So it's like now, or it's like Misha Tate. It's like
The holding
it's
pattern. It's a difficult place to be. Especially in divisions that aren't that deep. This is
yeah,
this is when having multiple organizations of like or similar size would be a really beneficial thing for athletes, because then they could jump around potentially if there was some non-exclusivity there, and then you could have
yeah,
you could showcase people, and maybe Chad could go somewhere else and fight and be a champion for a while and then create a super fight later down the line. But right now he's essentially at a place where he's at a standstill, at least for the time being, unless something changes.
yeah. I wish that's a good idea. That like what you just said. Like it would be cool if the UFC had the balls to do that. Like they should have the balls to do that because they really do have the best fighters. So it's like, why not take a challenge? Like when before Scott Coker took over Bellator, what was the guy's name?
Bjorn Rebney.
Uh yeah.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
Winnebago man's son.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But all that shit talking, you know what I mean? Like back and forth. Why was there not just a challenge between what was it? Would have been Frankie Edgar and Michael Chandler at that time.
Well, here's the thing: you have a lot of it's all based in privatization of business, and you have this approach where everybody wants to be the island and everybody wants to be the biggest and the best, and they want to be the exclusive. They want to be the NFL. They don't want the NFL and the XFL
Of
and
course.
the DFL or whatever the hell shit FLs are out there. That's the issue. Eh, what I like a lot about the boxing model, which actually tends to hurt the boxing model sometimes, is having these multiple belts and these 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 multiple organizations all kind of on the outskirts. Then they partner with HBO or Showtime or whatever to have a championship fight. I think it would be super cool if MMA really followed that model, the boxing model,
Yeah.
in the sense where, yeah, you know what, you could have some super fights, and the super fights land in a pay-per-view model, or they land on some sort of non-network uh, non-network TV platform or something like that, and everybody benefits. And in the meantime, you just kind of develop your own talent, you develop your own roster of people, and you create your own storylines and whatnot, and just through the athletes that are there. I think that could be
Yeah.
super cool. The problem is there's just there isn't that much money, and that's really what it comes down to. It is a
Yeah.
billion dollar industry for sure, worldwide. But the problem is everybody's going for that pie, and everybody wants as much of the pie as possible because the pie is not big enough to have multiple mid-sized organizations. They just can't survive.
Yeah.
Not without TV. I mean, if you look at, do you watch any of the stuff that's like on Access or anything like that used to be HDNet, like any of the smaller organizations?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, of course.
all right, like some of that stuff is really great. There's some great talent in there, but like more often than not, there people are utilizing or promoters are utilizing uh, what would be considered UFC cast-offs. People who had Zuffa contracts that ran into issues or had to step out of the organization for whatever reason, and they're not really developing their own homegrown athletes. And to me, that's also a huge problem. Like people aren't really having people. These promoters aren't really having the confidence in building stuff on their own. You know, like why do we need to see Tito and Bonner fight? You know,
That's
I, I mean, understand why. It's to create a sort of marginal buzz around some two known people to casual fans, but it does nothing to propel the sport to another level. You know, and
yeah,
I also think on the flip side, though, you have issues with uh, you have a lot of these issues going on with Zuffa right now, where they're a fantastic organization, but there's so many fight cards, and there's so
oh
many
dude,
fighters. They can't. They're not taking the time to develop these athletes in a way where they're memorable. You know, it's like
yeah,
even if you have a spectacular fight card and there's four or five athletes that really shine and that you're not really that familiar with, there's going to be another fight card in 48 hours and you're
yeah,
going to forget the name of all the new Brazilian guys that you should remember. You know,
yeah. It's so thin. It's just so thin. Like that's I really they just need to shake some stuff up, man. Like do a tournament or something like that. It's just like, and the thing is, their champions never fight.
well,
Like Demetrius fights, Ronda fights.
that's a perfect storm of injuries, of promotional opportunities slowing, I think slowing fight camps down and the ability to put really massive cards together, and also you them having Zuffa having a contract with Fox now changes the game entirely, where the pay-per-view model is essentially secondary. You know,
Yeah,
their broadcast rights are worth I forgot how much, but a significant amount of money. You know, millions and millions of dollars. And so that money, when they used to be essentially a pay-per-view exclusive business, they needed those fight cards. They needed that stuff, and the the fight cards were essentially just giant commercials for the pay-per-view cards. And
yeah,
now they just have to crank out content, which changes it completely changes the way they're approaching promotion.
yeah,
You just don't have the build like you used to, and I think that the fight game needs to build. The whole aspect of a one-on-one competition. It's about a final resolution to
yeah,
a dramatic build, whether it be in MMA, boxing, um, even professional wrestling, like we were talking about last episode or whatever. You need that payoff, and without that consistently, and without building stars, it's going to be a very difficult thing to pull off. You can't just
yeah,
have 40 cards going, because if that was the case, right? If that model could be successful, Access TV and which used to be HDNet or whatever, having like Lion Fights and Legacy Fighting Championship and
yeah,
MFC, that would be the biggest fight network in the world. But it's
yeah,
not, because
yeah.
it's not about volume. It's
To,
not about
I-
volume.
to like build dudes' names. I mean, remember watching Pride, where like just some uh, regular, ordinary black guy from Memphis goes in and starts handing dude their ass, and then you're just like, oh, Quentin Jackson, this guy's unreal. Like, who is this guy? And it was tournament based,
Sure.
and you went in, and it's like every dog has its day. You know what I mean? And that's I think that the way to build fighters is like let those dudes take a shot, man. I mean, there's times where like I don't know if we said I was talking to someone. I don't know if it was you on that last episode, but like seeing Donald Cerrone in that Nate Diaz fight where he just looked like there was just no answer. He looked sick. He looked lethargic, and it was like Nate Diaz just had his number.
Right.
And then Donald Cerrone goes on a 6-fight win streak. Like after that, you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, every once in a while, somebody will come around that'll have that power and have that kind of it factor.
Yeah.
It
But
doesn't
what
happen
I'm
as
saying
often.
is like that. A perfect example of that is just like Donald Cerrone had 4 fights. He was on a 4-fight win streak before that fight,
Hmm.
and then just Nate Diaz had his number, and it's like I think obviously like the fight storyline is the best storyline. So it's like, what was the fight where it was TJ Dillashaw where Brendan Barreo got hurt or had to go, and then that dude that was it Joe Sampo like stepped in, or Joe Soto.
Joe Soto stepped in.
Yeah, like stepped in. That made a story.
Definitely, it just was like, a talented dude. That was a good fight, you know.
Yeah, and what if that dude put one on him?
Would have been amazing.
I mean, that's what it is. But nowadays, it's just they just rehash the same stuff over and over again. And like, I really think that a tournament base, like they did that one card where it was all heavyweight.
Yeah.
Remember that card?
Yeah, it's a bit sticky but cool, right?
But they really didn't do anything with it. It wasn't like it was a tournament. It wasn't like if, you know, Dos Santos got past Carwin and he'd have to fight Verdum. And then if Verdum got past, you know, like if they did that and actually built it up, where it was like, okay, let's take 8 guys, we'll have them all on one card.
Right.
And, you know, like a middleweight tournament or something like that. And do it almost like the Pride thing. And, you know, it's shitty as it's, I mean, almost steal the Bellator thing. Like, make these guys have to fight.
Well, you know, they do it in a way, but they do it silently, you know, where you'll see, like, you know, cards are put together by Joe Silva and company scientifically. You know, they're hoping that, you know, fighter A and fighter B that are on the card that are slated as favorites advance to then go to the next card, and that next card will be a you know, a title eliminator fight or something like that. And you always have, like, you know, like a welterweight heavy, you know, top, you know, whatever top, you know, 5 or 10 dudes going at it on one specific card. And it's kind of broken down that way and staggered in a way to lead to the next card. But I think the issue is that there isn't enough, at least from a fan perspective. Now, I don't know what goes on internally with this sort of thing, but from a fan perspective, there isn't enough organization and promotion put behind these individual guys where you know the story of, like, I don't think a casual fan knows much about, you know, Nate Diaz and the Diaz brothers at this point.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think a lot of them realize how, you know, fantastic Donald Cerrone is, and how, you know, and how he's essentially fought every named dude, everyone, you know, in the last like 4 years, and he's been a killer. You know, you just you're almost as good as your most recent fight, and that's it. And you don't really, you know, you just don't see the star build. I mean, do you remember the last fighters that made a huge impression on you, like out of the gate, that you never heard of, you know, and you saw them for the first time? Like, who were they for you?
Oh, geez.
Like, I'm just thinking, it's hard for me. It's really hard for me to come up with it.
I mean, it'll probably go back to Pride. You know, like that far back almost. You know, like a Ricardo Arona or something like that. Or,
oh, poor Arona, man. He just had surgery. He got shot at a party.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Dude, what is going on with the dudes down there, man? Everybody's getting stabbed and shot, and just, but guys, just stay away from those places.
Arona has been one of my favorite, I guess, characters, probably because he's such a wild one in the MMA world for a long time. And there's so much unrealized talent there, you know.
Yeah.
You know, people argue that it was like, you know, that the steroid Pride era or whatever. But, you know, he was an amazing athlete, and he stood with the other steroid monsters at the time. He was amazing. You know, it's just sad to see what's happened with him and Paulo Filho.
That's just heartbreaking, man.
Yeah, he was fantastic too.
Unreal, man. And he was fighting dudes that, like, I think about, like, we were talking about Demetrius Johnson on the last one. Think about the fact that Demetrius Johnson was fighting dudes that were like 30 pounds heavier than him.
Oh, yeah.
And like doing pretty good.
Like, he was doing great. He had speed kills, man. You know, I mean, you look at somebody like Demetrius or Ian McCall, you know, or, you know, a weight class above with like a Dominic Cruz, and you see true what true speed can do in MMA. It's awesome stuff. Well, I wanted to talk to you actually about you brought up something a minute ago about the heavyweights, and the closest thing I think we had to an absolutely awesome heavyweight, uh, just long term storyline playing out was the Strikeforce Grand Prix when that was going on.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, did you go to any of those?
No, I didn't go to any of those.
I went to the first one, right, in New Jersey with my pal Mike Lucier and Matt Pike, and we were real lucky, man. We got like second row on the floor, and I remember Josh Barnett was sitting in front of me for a little while, and I, they gave them all like these Strikeforce Grand Prix varsity jackets.
Yeah.
And he had it like on a seat behind him, and I grabbed it and I was like, "Excuse me, sir, you're on my coat." I was trying to get it. He didn't think it was very funny.
Yeah. he's an interesting guy. That one.
He deadpanned me. We've talked since via Twitter, but he's pretty awesome.
There was a point in time when we were like trying to take these pictures together, and I don't remember what it was, but they wanted us to like face off like a fight.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there looking at Josh Barnett, and I could not stop smiling. And he is just so dead on. I mean, that's his life. So like, he was right in character. You know what I mean? Like just dead face, looked like he wanted to murder me, and I couldn't stop smiling. Like I just couldn't get it together, and like. It was just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it's not my world. You know what I mean? Any fight I've ever been in my life is something that happens right then and there. There's no standoff. It's just, boom, it happens. And this guy, like Daniel Cormier, those dudes beat the shit out of each other with broken hands for 5 rounds.
It was a beautiful fight. That was really some beautiful violence.
Dude, the X-rays of both of their hands made me hurt.
It was crazy.
There were like bones going like sideways, and they were hitting each other with them. That is just insanity to me, dude. Yeah. And for 25 minutes, they sat there and just beat on each other. It was a great fight. No one lost that fight. No,
we won. We all won.
Yeah.
I went to that first card or whatever when Fedor fought Bigfoot. And that was so dramatic in person. I just needed to see the legend in person, and it was such a rad, beautiful experience. You know, it was heartbreaking to see him go down that way. I remember my pal Mike put his hand on his shoulder as he was walking away, and just felt so bad for him. And then we stayed in the same hotel that night as a lot of the fighters. And I remember eating breakfast at a table next to Bigfoot the morning of that fight.
Yeah.
And just seeing the size of him and knowing that he had to fight Fedor, and I was just like, I don't know how this is going to play out. To physically, because there's a size thing there where there's like the wild super heavyweights that essentially go into a fight with a true handicap where they're not really mobile people. They can't really be athletic because there's too much weight that they have to throw around. But you have a guy like Bigfoot where he's at like the peak of functional weight, and size. And he's, right at that 265 limit when he walks in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's as wide as a car. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
Like Fedor at that point, fighting that. What's that?
I want to say that I think Fedor was like, he was weighing 235 and like not cutting. He was going in at 235.
A soft 235 too. Yeah.
He could have fought 205.
Oh, for sure. I think.
You know what I mean?
I mean, for all intents and purposes, we saw a 205 what Fedor 205 would have probably looked like when he fought Henderson at his peak, in that just wild first round.
Yeah.
Because he had the ability and the power to put pretty much anyone down at that weight, but the speed would have been a factor for him because you would have had all these light heavyweights that had because light heavies are a lot of them are essentially slimmed down heavyweights, and they're going to be able to have a similar speed, similar hand speed, similar footwork speed, regardless of style, and he's not going to have that that sort of like in and out kill power like he had on like Brett Rogers or something.
Yeah. I remember like when he was, rolling over everybody, I remember people saying like some of the dumbest shit. Just like his striking is so just wild and blah blah. And it's like, dude, watch, that's Sambo. That's where he comes from. So like in that world, you're supposed to throw big looping punches and try to work on a shot to get a guy down. And like Fedor he was just I would have loved to see him at that time period if he would have cut the 205 and came to the UFC to see him fight like Randy and Chuck Liddell and those dudes. Like that would have been, those fights would have been unreal, man.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Or if he showed up and fought the UFC heavyweights at the time, we essentially saw that with the two affliction cards.
Yeah.
He tore through. Although I gotta say, Arlovsky really did make him look human in that first round. He looked a little heavy for that fight. Fedor did. He looked a little slower. He had his power, obviously, but just those Arlovsky's basic boxing was so sharp for that fight, and that first round was essentially it was a boxing fight.
Yeah, he backed him up the whole time.
Backed him up, was firing a jab that was fired a beautiful jab at him that had him just in trouble. Getting hit with a jab like that, people don't really understand the true use of a jab. If you're getting a jab in the face every 3 seconds, Nick Diaz style, or any like sort of like traditional boxing style, someone who's like really using their lead hand, you can't get your timing, you can't get your footwork, you can't readjust. If you back up and they're right back on top of you, heavy with that jab, even if it's pitter patter with a couple power shots and kind of some step in jabs in there, like if you don't get time to reset, you are in trouble. It throws your breathing off. It throws your breathing off. It throws your footwork off. Your side to side movement is gone, absolutely gone. Because you're just backing up, trying to get out of the way. It's like trying to get out of the way of the rain, without an umbrella.
Yeah.
But it's like hitting you straight in the face. It's like try to get away from a fire hose in the face. That's what a good jab is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. A guy like Fedor never seemed to almost never throw him. He was all power, but it was awesome to watch. Have you ever? Oh, go ahead.
Was it Fujita that put him down?
Yeah, Fujita smashed him with a hook, I believe, that he didn't see coming and really wobbled him, and then he ended up getting some hooks on Fujita and just kind of holding on for dear life. Which was smart because that's how you get finished right there. He held on, and all that old pride stuff is so fantastic.
Oh, it was awesome. And then what was it? Kevin Randleman had him hurt, and then
he killed him. He basically killed him. Yeah.
But like it's so insane to me. Obviously, like I'm not a fighter, so to see dudes like Josh and dudes like that, like they're thinking 5 steps ahead. So like when he's in the air, if you're watching that slow motion, that belly to back suplex that Randleman hit him on, the wheels are turning. Like you can see the wheels turning in his head. Like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Sure.
In the air, you can see him positioning the Kimura.
Yeah, well, he goes for the Kimura, but he also he disperses his weight in such a way that he doesn't take it he doesn't take the full power of that slam. He just kind of
Yeah.
rolls with it. But it's nasty, and he gambled. I mean, he if he got hit with that, like yeah, five out of I would say like 4 out of 5 times, he's
Yeah.
he's done for the fight. You know.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a dramatic fight. Talking
Okay.
about Arona and Rampage back in the day. When have you watched other angles of that slam? That's probably Rampage's most famous slam of
Oh
all
yeah,
time.
the power bomb.
It was an
Power
amazing
bomb.
power bomb.
Yeah.
Now he's hurt before the power bomb. Um, do you feel that Arona could have won that fight? And do you feel that Arona was knocked out not from the slam but from
The head
the
slashing.
accidental head bash? Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely the head bash. I want to say that because remember the big. I mean, Rampage had that huge
Huge
cut over
cut.
his eye.
Huge.
And I think it hit his temple. I think like when his head popped up, his head hit his temple, and that's what knocked Arona out.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the headbutt as well. The slam, but that's from the slam. So really, for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, the slam knocked him out. But yeah, I think it was the headbutt. It was the accidental headbutt in there. I personally think.
I think Arona. I mean, Arona had that fight.
I thought
up
so.
to that point.
He was a monster at that point. He was an unstoppable monster. He gave no shits about anybody. It was awesome.
And he had that wacky like chin up, hands down, kind of like Hicks and Gracie stand up, where it was like, what is this dude doing, man? Like,
yeah, he would just
head knocked off.
He would just he had a lot of lunging punches, a lot of step in jabs and stuff, and then into big power shots. And he had a sick ground game, for the time in MMA.
His ground game was unreal, yeah.
And he was so, I mean, he was so athletically superior to, not, I guess, really not in Pride at the time because everybody were monsters, but he was such a beast that, everyone had a hard time with him, just on sheer physicality of the guy.
Yeah. There was that Pride time was a really weird thing because there were so many dudes that were just a little past their prime that were like, if it had been 3 years earlier, like Merlo Bustamante, Alan Goes, like all those dudes were like, when the IVC was around, like those dudes were like handing people their ass. And then Pride started, they brought them to Japan, and they were just a little too old at that point in time, and they just couldn't. I mean, they were competing, but like a younger dude like Arona or Rampage were just like, throwing them around. Like there was no.
Well, it allowed them to build stars. You had guys that were complete killers like Igor Volchanchin, be at the end of his career with a neck injury and still go into these fights and, fight like a lion and lose. But there would be that sort of athletic passing of the torch where you had a new star born with that kind of defeat, Um, that was a really interesting thing about Pride. That was probably because the pool was thinner. It wasn't as deep. And you just had more cool storylines and more cool characters.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember watching when Fedor fought Heath Herring? And for all intents and purposes, Heath was the public favorite.
Yeah.
People thought that
absolutely.
Heath was going to be, the heavyweight champion there. And he just getting ran through with a body shot, and then he's getting destroyed.
That body
awesome.
shot is insane, dude.
Awesome stuff. Or like watching Fedor fight Gary Goodrich when Gary was all. I don't think Gary wasn't a favorite, but at that point, but Fedor definitely didn't have that sort of like air around him that he had just a few fights later after the big Nogueira fights.
Yeah. The thing is, though, man, is like the thing that was scary about Fedor is like there was just no emotion. Like that dude was just a shark, man. Like he wasn't. It wasn't like he didn't get pumped up. He always came into the fight like dry, almost like he didn't, you know what I mean, like train or whatever, or not train but warm up, and he would just go in there and just, he would raise his hand and just, he was like a champion's champion. It was pretty insane. And I can imagine, like, if they brought him to the UFC and, like, that's the one thing, like, okay, yeah, the fights, we could see what he was made of. And, like, there's all that talk about how he fought cans and stuff like that, but he really didn't. Uh, how the UFC would market him. Like, they would do these 24/7 things, and, like, do I really want to see how Fedor lives?
All right.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Well, you know
it,
what? You know why he was such an amazing champion? Or just athlete in general. It's just his true personality. Like, do you remember watching his interview after Verdum beat him,
yeah,
and what he said? He sat
yeah,
there with an interpreter with Gus Johnson, on his right, and he had one of the best quotes ever after the end of a fight. It was you were watching a real life Rocky movie, and he said, "The one who doesn't fall never stands up."
yeah,
How hard is that?
yeah.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah, he's a champion's champion, and that's the and that it's kind of unbelievable to me that he just disappeared. Like, not disappeared, but he's just not. Is he even doing anything like this? He was at Red Devil, right?
Well, yeah, he was. He was at was Russian was it Russian it was
Top
it
team,
was Russian top team with Roman Zentlov.
Volkan.
Yeah, there was I'm trying to think who else was there. I want to say his brother might have been there too. And then there was a financial issue, and then a managerial issue. He jetted, and I believe that's when he worked out his deal with Vadim or whatever.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how Red Devil was started. And Red Devil was like his brother was in that. There was that baby Fedor guy.
Yeah.
I forgot his name.
There was like Amir Suluev. It was part of that team.
Yeah, I can't even remember everybody. But yeah, it was an interesting team, but it was created specifically for him. You know.
Yeah, that's kind of like a bit with that. It's like I feel like a team, kind of like American Top Team, where you just have all these dudes, uh, all in Florida, and like they're basically like testing each other, and they're basically sharpening iron with iron.
Right.
There, and then you have these dudes like, and I hate calling any fighter like, I'm not gonna say they're weak at all, but like you got dudes like Overeem, Brock Lesnar, who are just around yes men, who basically just cater to their fighter. They're not really pushing them.
I mean,
with other fighters.
I think some of that is myth. Uh, and I mean, some of it, is true in theory, but like, a dude like, Alistar has been around killers all his life, and as much as people want to say he's around yes men, he's going from camp to camp for sure. But when he was with
But when you hear about it though, it's like he's in his own room. Like when he was at Maxillian,
yeah,
he had his own room. He had his own time where he trained.
But Black Zillions is a really strange setup anyway. Black Zillions is essentially made by a clothing company owner, and I think later a manager or whatever. And they basically just created that gym, similar to how Black House was started as well. Where it was just sort of like this loose association of guys, and then you had some purchase coaches and some dudes just kind of being lured away due to being promised different percentages financially and things like that. And it created a lot of star power, and um, there was definitely a big influx of talent and athletes, but you didn't really have like that homegrown um, gym atmosphere that you have with a lot of other camps. It was it was just a different vibe entirely.
But like, imagine if Brock Lesnar went to a Jackson or an American Top Team, or like where he's basically thrown in with wolves and has to get thrown around. I mean, he was up in Minnesota training in like his own facility with his own guys who are like, I'm not going to say those dudes are bad coaches, but it always seemed like every time they talked to him, all they would say is like, you know, Brock told us this, Brock told us this, Brock told us that. It's like, dude, you should be telling Brock this. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
Brock's a really interesting anomaly. You know,
yeah.
I mean, physically, there's nothing there's nothing and nobody like him. You know, out there.
No,
you
no.
have people might try to compare like a guy like Bobby Lashley to him just because of their trajectories, but Bobby's gone and gone to ATT, and he's a MMA athlete. But to me, Bobby's an athlete, not a fighter. When I watch Bobby fight, you know, he goes for the win. He doesn't go for the kill. You know, and it's a little bit different of a personality thing. You know, and I like I like antisocial things. You know, I'm a punk rocker, so I like dudes who go for the kill that don't necessarily grind out a decision or just use their physicality. And I thought Brock was a guy out there in MMA that would go for the kill. Like he would have been a Viking. You know what I mean? Like he would have been like a barbarian at a different time in his life.
When he blew Heath Herring across the ring.
Oh, with that shot, yeah,
it was insane, dude. Like,
yeah, it was crazy.
And then smashing. I mean, dude, Frank Mir got the win that first fight, but Brock Lesnar put a beating on him for 1 straight minute. That was, I mean, it was bad. It almost should have been stopped. And then he got the heel hook on him. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. It's just like nobody's telling him, hey, this dude's he's gonna pull a heel hook on this. And no one's yelling at him like, watch the heel hook. And you could see him going for the trip and stuff like that. And nobody was yelling it. If you watch the fight, nobody's yelling, like, watch the heel hook, watch the heel hook.
That was quite an event.
And
that was crazy. I remember getting his first fight card, that K1 the K1 Dynamite card, and at the LA Coliseum or whatever. I felt like I was like one of the only 40 people that got that card. And I wasn't even excited about Brock. There was something. Oh, was that the Hoist Sakuraba rematch card? There was something else that was going on that card too. I can't remember what it was, but there was Fedor. No, was it Fedor?
No. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, no, Hoist did fight Sakuraba on that card.
Hoist did?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was a really weird card. Really weird.
Those K1 cards are always kind of weird.
Yeah, but this one just being papered as it was in one of the biggest coliseums ever, you know, and like there'd be like virtually no gate to speak of, you know, like $250,000 or something like that. But yeah, I'm looking at it now. So Brad Pickett fought Takoro on that. So that's a pretty awesome fight. Sakuraba and Hoist fought, and Brock and Minsu Kim fought because Hongman Choi wasn't granted a license at the last minute. I completely forgot that Jay-Z Cavalcante fought Nam Fan on that card too. Huh, how about that?
Nam Fan. I feel bad for that dude.
Nam? Well, Nam's an old school dude, and he's been around forever.
Yeah.
Forever. He's had a solid career, you know. Do you feel bad for him in the sense that just he's been pushed out and he's just kind of floating now?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just I just think he's better than that. They gave him tough fights right off the bat. He had tough fights immediately. He didn't get like there was no warm-up fight for him.
No, because people knew that he was at I wouldn't say the end of his career, but he's at the peak of his career, or at least on his way down physically. Just being an older athlete in MMA, you know, it's hard on the body. So I think they gave him like Leonard Garcia and stuff like that. Right? I think there was like the 2 Leonard Garcia fights.
Yeah,
those were huge.
And that first one was insane.
Yeah. huge. They give him Mike Brown, which and Mike Brown for his time when he was actively fighting was essentially the Chad Mendez of his time.
Oh yeah.
So that's a really dangerous fight right there. And then he fought Cole Miller.
Yep.
Cole's dangerous because he's a tall glass of water.
Yeah, and then Dennis Siver, and then Mizugaki.
Yeah, that was
tough.
It was pretty tough. Yeah.
This is something I wanted to talk to you because we talked about Connor last time.
Yeah,
it's like all this talk like Connor's going to be this contender, and then they give him Dennis Siver.
Mm-hmm. Well, he wanted
weird. It was so weird. That's a weird fight.
It is weird. They needed him for the Boston card. It seems like.
Yeah.
I was at that last Boston card that Connor fought on, and he fought that kid from one of the Ultimate Fighter shows. I'm trying to remember his name. Was it Max Holloway?
Oh yeah, he fought Max Holloway.
Max Holloway? Yeah. And the pop for Connor was absolutely huge. And
insane, right?
Yeah, and they just and this is early in his career, and they just really wanted him on that card. He's a great draw. It's the most Irish city you're going to find in the States. So
yeah.
If he, for some reason, I have a feeling that the UFC isn't that hot on Dennis Siver after that last drug bust.
I mean, if you look at that dude, like if there's no one in the ring, there's not a referee standing there, you'd think that guy's a heavyweight.
He's a huge.
Until someone walks in, he's big.
Big guy, and so I have a feeling that he's being treated a little bit like a sacrificial lamb, and I don't necessarily think that's fair because I think Dennis is a accomplished athlete regardless of his his alleged drug use or whatever. Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think Connor's going to get to Jose? You think that's what's going to happen?
I mean, right now they're basically setting up to do that. I just feel bad for
Cub.
Cub, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that fight would have made more sense, but I think Cub's kind of holding out for Jose Aldo.
Well, Cub actually has Frankie before that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
And I think that's every time I read, I read some sort of like a news story that's developed for hits out there in the MMA world. I just see people talking about how he's getting overlooked, and they're forgetting that he has this huge fight in front of him. A massively huge fight. And Frankie is not the most beatable guy.
No, not at all.
Like he's gonna make anybody look bad, and I really don't know how that fight's gonna go. I cannot figure it out.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's almost impossible to think that Cub's gonna outwork him because like Frankie's the hardest worker.
So I don't feel he'll outwork him. If anything, I think if Cub has a shot, it's going to be through some sort of blitz, some sort of heavy shot, because we know that Frankie is hittable. We've seen Gray do it. We've seen guys bigger than Frankie do it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We haven't seen somebody the same size as Frankie really push him like that. Maybe if you go back and you watch one of the best fights that people never talk about, which is Tyson Griffin and Frankie.
That fight's awesome.
Maybe was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
But that was granted, Frankie's a very different fighter now, but that was, you had two similarly sized guys in the weight class at the time with the same talent level at the time going at it. And, Frankie was never hurt, in that. And I don't see Cub try. I just don't see Cub being able to hurt him. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't.
It's going to be hard. If Frankie comes in and tries to wrestle Cub, Cub's in trouble. Not saying that Cub's wrestling isn't bad. Cub's wrestling is awesome, but like Frankie's just too quick like that, man.
To me, Cub's an emotional fighter. And that's what I really enjoy about watching him fight. He gets angry, and you see it in the way he fights, and he turns it up, and he can be just really measured, but he can also be just really wild. And then the new cub that's been having all of the success has been a really confident, measured, calculated cub. If he can come in and hold that together and have a game plan, he might be able to do it. I just see Frankie as having all those tools to mitigate that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So is there any other MMA things you want to talk about?
No. Big fight this weekend.
There is Pride Never Die. Mark Hunt. Who you got?
Yeah. I really want. For some reason, I just never liked Verdun, and I don't know why. I just never took him seriously. I don't know why. And I just for a Cinderella story, it would be amazing to see Hunt pull it out. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be amazing to see Hunt pull that out.
It would be amazing, but Verdum is one of those guys that he has all the tools right now. He has,
yeah.
He's not on the downside of his career physically yet. A lot of dudes when they get older and they've been fighting as long as they have, you tend to see them start falling off, getting slower or whatnot. But he had this really interesting trajectory of being, the jiu-jitsu monster for a long time, and then slowly building up his striking game, and working with Rafael Cordero and stuff, and just becoming a super well-rounded fighter. I just don't see a way to beat him. The only thing that I do give, I give Mark all the heart in the world, and I give him all the power in the world. He, from reading a few things, like I don't know if you saw that Overeem was talking about how Mark Hunt's easily the strongest person that he's ever fought, physically being hit by, and he knows how to throw with power, and there's again, like there's always that there's that funny saying about you're a black belt until you get punched in the face,
Yep.
And I could see Verdum trying to get in a firefight with Mark and losing, and that would be the greatest Cinderella story in the world. But it's going to be tough to see that happen.
Yeah, the thing is, that Verdum's going to volume. He's gonna move in. He's gonna move out. He's gonna move in. He's gonna move out. He's gonna go for a takedown. He's just gonna tire Mark out. And I think that maybe third round he's gonna submit him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that Mark's gonna be able to hang with him. Verdum looked unreal in that Travis Brown fight. It almost looked like a video game.
Yeah. What do you feel? Do you have any thoughts about Luke Rockhold and his trajectory right now after beating Bisping?
I said it before they even announced that Bisping fight, that if anyone's going to beat Weidman, it's going to be him.
When he's healthy, man, he's a beast. He is prone to injury. That's the only that's the only strike against him from the last following the last like 4 years or so. And it's not as much as he's prone to injury. He's just smart. He doesn't fight injured. They all fighters fight hurt, but he doesn't fight injured. If there's an issue, he just doesn't fight. But when he's at 100%, he's a scary individual right now.
Yeah, man, he's so good. He's got everything. Probably one of the most well-rounded guys, like actual well-rounded guys. Where like he could be the guy. I mean, Weidman is he might be next to maybe George, the most well-rounded, where like he just doesn't have. I mean, dude, what was the fight that Weidman took? He took it like 7 days notice or something like that, and like
the Damian Maia fight, was it that one?
Yeah, and he just looked unstoppable in that fight, and like cut the weight and just had a great fight, and just beat that dude basically where he's strongest.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know what's going to happen in that division right now. I'd like to see Luke do something really, really amazing and become a champion. He'd have to fight Jacare again, and Jacare to me is looking great. I don't see Jacare matching up very well with Weidman though. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't. I see Jacare as an emotional fighter as well, which makes him a favorite of mine. But I just don't see him. I don't know. I just don't see him being able to pull off a win.
Yeah, I want to see. Oh wait, is Lombard back at 185 or is he at 170?
I'm not sure right now. Actually, I haven't looked in a while.
Because I'd love to see him versus Yoel Romero.
That's a great fight.
That fight would be sick. That last fight where Yoel Romero got that 5-minute break and came back against Tim Kennedy. Obviously that's an old dirty boxing trick, but like it was John McCarthy sat there and watched it happen.
He was pissed. John, to be fair to McCarthy, he was pissed. He basically threw the stool out of there.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy. He knew something was going on. But the problem is there needed to be 2 or 3 John McCarthys in that ring to make it move forward. He really should have ended the fight on the stool when he didn't answer it. But it was some sneaky shit. That fight could have gone either way. I feel bad for Tim in a lot of ways, for Tim Kennedy. I like Tim Kennedy a lot. I think he's a great athlete. I just think that sometimes publicly he doesn't come off as the most likable character. Even though he is a really interesting person and a really fantastic athlete. If that kind of outcome would have happened to like a fan favorite per se, it would have been a huge uproar. But Tim is kind of soured upon by people for some reason, much like how like a Bisping is in a way. They're both kind of become unlikable to the public.
Same type of people for sure. Like just their shit talking is just really bad.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's jockeying for position to get fights and to get notoriety and get sponsors, but there's a time where it's appropriate and there's a time where it just seems like a little bit overkill.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I should probably let you go. We've been talking for an hour, and I appreciate you taking the time to finish this up again.
I mean, that was basically just an MMA hour.
It was. Yes, it was an MMA hour. That's cool, though.
Hardcore kids are going to hate that one.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing, right? I am, as a person, I'm a punk rock guy, and I don't particularly, I don't like violence. I don't like street fights. I don't like nonsensical, horrible things that are tearing at the fabric of society. But what I do like is athleticism and healthy competition, because I think it's in our human nature, it's in our DNA, and it's something that's really important to put out there. And I think that's people who relate to aggressive music should be able to relate to that basic fundamental thing. So I don't see fight sport as something that is bad. I see a lot of the shit that goes on around it and the cultural things around it as being incredibly stupid and dumb. But it doesn't take away from the fight. And it doesn't take away from these really amazing athletes putting themselves out there and the human story that's told through boxing, through MMA, through kickboxing, through jiu-jitsu and grappling competitions. There's just awesome stuff that's happening out there, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, I'm always interested in something that pits one man against one man.
Sure, and
it's always more interesting.
To me, it really is. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm not a sports fan. I'm not a team sports fan. I could give a shit about any other sport in the world except for MMA, boxing, and Muay Thai, kickboxing, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if somebody hasn't given it a chance and they just think it's macho nonsense. Some of it is for sure, but then there's some really interesting people out there that are involved in it. Really interesting characters that aren't necessarily your typical alpha males, and it's awesome to see that. And awesome to see people come from these horrible social situations and cultural situations, guy like some of the Brazilian dudes are coming up and coming up there, just living in poverty and fighting their way out of it. Then you have guys like Luke Rockhold who seem like they came out of the pages of like a surfer magazine or something. You
Yeah.
know. Next, then you have Hector Lombard. You have former Olympians. You have all these wild stories. It's really interesting to me. So
Yeah.
I don't know if people don't have dismissed it. I encourage them to at least check out some of it,
Yeah.
and maybe just even go and look at like the older Pride stuff. Start with with one of the Pride, with the kind of dramatic Pride middleweight
Even so,
tournament.
if you think about it, even like their backstage, like they let the fighters have a personality. Where like sometimes maybe in the UFC it seems like suppress the they suppress their personality to showcase a story that pits both men. One thing, if you ever get a chance, if you're listening to this, look at some of the interviews in Pride when like it's Stephen Quatros goes back, he interviews a fighter, asks him a question that puts them on the spot, and then it's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. When Pro Cop fights Dos Caras Jr., he's asked, "Hey, how do you feel about fighting a guy that wears a mask?" And Pro Cop stood up and walked away.
Great.
Probably the coolest thing. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much cool.
Well,
Pride.
Watching the drama, that's like a very relatable drama, just between good guys and bad guys, or there's just like the basic human story of like uh, watch some of that early Pride stuff with like Fedor building up to fighting Mirko Cro Cop. That's some of the most amazing fight drama in the world. The people were just anticipating, like just dying for that fight. Never mind the Fedor Big Nogueira fights. Just absolutely awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Or watch Big Nogueira fight Bob Sapp if you want to see drama.
Yeah.
Just awesome stuff. And then that's a great way to be introduced to this amazing sport. And then you can kind of come in and start, picking out some favorites and seeing what's out there. I mean, if you just want to see some insane fast violence, watch the 1 round banger, the first round between Paul Daly and Nick Diaz is one of the greatest things of all time.
That's so good. Each dude gets dropped like 3 times.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
Amazing stuff. All right. Well, hey, get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your tour. Man. And thank you so much again for talking to me.
Anytime.
We'll have this posted soon. And be safe on the road. Okay. And tell the guys, thanks for, leaving you alone a little bit and let me talk to you.
Yeah, of course. All right, bud. All right, anytime you want to do this again, hit me up.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
All right, man.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Later. Bye.